Of course, with such a brief summary of the history of that generation, it may seem that the next generation did not fundamentally differ from the previous one. Well, yes, Japanese manufacturers, and in particular Toyota, have constantly used such unification from generation to generation. On the other hand, we know what the corporations were doing in the second half of the 80s. All forces were thrown into the development and marketing of a new brand and model for the US market. In such conditions, as in no other, this saving on technology was explainable. Moreover, knowing the future role of the Camry/Vista V20, Toyota did everything necessary at that time to make the model playing the backup dancer look attractive. For example, from now on, Camry's twin, Vista, on the one hand, is still a complete clone of the parent model. On the other, it has ceased to be a sedan. The central pillars of the roof were retained, but the side windows were deprived of frames. In addition, the body of this hardtop was 25 millimeters lower than that of the sedan. Almost a year later, using the newly appeared 6s of the VZ line, they created a luxury version for the domestic market, Camry Prominent. And then these V6s were offered overseas. And in 1989, the Lexus ES250 debuted based on the Vista body. However, do not forget that Camry was supposed to be a global model. This is probably why, having studied the demand in Europe, America, Australia, the liftback of the previous generation was replaced by a station wagon. By the way, on the green continent, Camry was produced and sold as Holden Apollo. Engine. As for the engines, the V6 Camry/Vista in Japan, of course, did not receive. But they also got rid of some of the engines of the previous generation. The outdated 2.0-liter 2S petrol and 1C TL diesel engine, which were outdated by that time, never appeared under the hood. The stunted 85 horsepower 1.8-liter 1S was replaced with a 105 horsepower 4S during a planned restyling in 1988. The carbureted 3S FC was offered to a limited extent in selected markets. As a result, the 2C, T, and 3S FE diesel engines, which also existed in the hot 140 horsepower version of GE, became the main ones. Transmission. The main transmission units, a mechanical 5-speed and a 4-speed automatic, have evolved from almost completely hydraulic to electronic. But all-wheel drive, with an interaxle differential blocked by a multiplate clutch, appeared just in this generation. Gradually, a couple more techno options were added, a driver's airbag and ABS in the American market in 1991, in fact, at the end of the assembly line life. As for equipment, the Lexus ES250 from the whole family, of course, was out of competition. The first Optitron panel, leather upholstery, expensive audio system, cruise control, salon and equipment. But, for example, the same cruise with leather was received by ordinary American Camry. And besides this, good music with a screen and an equalizer, push-button control of the climate. Japanese customers were not deprived at Toyota either. It seems that only in the home market a sedan and a hardtop could have an electronic instrument cluster. Due to the focus on Europe-America, drivers were provided with a sufficient range of longitudinal seat adjustment. The rear passengers were not deprived either. Somehow, with a wheelbase identical to the previous generation, the engineers managed to carve out a few millimeters, moreover, molding the sofa more expressively. And the fact that the trunk lid now reached the bumper was, without a doubt, a concern for the consumer outside of Japan. 3S FE then developed only 120 horsepower, 15 to 20 horses, less than in later modifications. But you don't feel this lack of strength at all. And one more characteristic observation, only 120 forces, but how nice it is to control traction here. Throttle valve blocks switched to electronics only a quarter of a century after the introduction of the V20. At the same time, the consumer could still enjoy the direct connection of the right leg with the process of preparing a combustible mixture. And although it is unlikely that anyone in Japan was interested in this, now a sophisticated driver will definitely feel the difference between the current environmentally strangled motors and this champion of true mechanical faith. Again, it is not in pure power and seconds to hundreds in how the engine reacts to the gas supply without delay. Suspension. The Pendant has its own charm. It is known that Toyota and active chassis tuning are almost antonyms. But after all, it is far from important for everyone that a middle-class sedan is controlled like a coupe. Moreover, Camry reacts quite adequately to a change in direction of movement, without straining with an overly light steering wheel and without frightening rolls. However, The value here, of course, is different. Even the primitive McPherson Toyota then knew how to set it up so that it became silk. Provided not just acceptable, more than sufficient smoothness, and at the same time did not knock on the rebound racks. Fortunately, we came across a copy on tires of a regular dimension, 185/70 R14. Outcome. Unfortunately, as mentioned above, Camry/Vista of that generation for the inhabitants of our country and the desire to have a comfortable and reliable foreign car has become a bargaining chip. They didn't know how to properly maintain and repair the Japanese then, but already looked at the next generation. Many V20s ended up as document and license plate donors. The same thing that remains. No, specimens like ours, well-preserved, technically sound, come across and cost, as a rule, more than 150,000 rubles, and sometimes for 200,000. But there are literally a few of them. Not like, for example, in the States, where the Camry and ES250 shamelessly invaded the Yankees and proved that the Japanese car is comfortable, and in terms of reliability, Pontiac and Cadillac are no match for it. True, if we talk about the overseas counterpart of Vista, then the concern quickly realized that it does not fit well into the overall concept of luxury of the new brand. They quickly replaced it with the next generation model, and that's why the first ES is now a rarity there. Camry is still enough on the roads of America,